it was our kind of quest to create the most dominant positive frequency of water that exists. And it took us 15 years. And what we created is the Aǹalemma. So what's inside this vial is what we call the mother water. It takes 1 full year for us to create. And because water is always going to pick up the most dominant frequency of its environment, when you submerge the Aǹalemma in the regular water and you swirl around, any H2O molecule that comes into close proximity to the mother water starts to mimic its exact state and structure. That's why it's so elegant and simple, yet is so powerful. And then you actually have the cup of the mother water, which you drink, and then you have incredible results, which we're going to go into.
Welcome back to the Medicin Podcast. My name is Mimi, and I have my partner in love and life and podcasting here with me.
What is going on, everybody? This is Chase. We are honored and excited because we have a special guest today, CEO of Analemma Water, Mario Brainovic. Welcome to the Medicin Podcast, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me. I love your energy. As soon as we started talking, I love the vibe that you're having. So I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
We have a ton of questions. This is going to be, a little disclaimer, a little warning here for the listeners. This is going to be a sciencey, nerdy podcast, and we can definitely break things down and make things easier to understand. But we just want, a fire hose of all of your knowledge, all of your wisdom, and we want the science. We want the research. We want the data. Just give it to us here. So the first question that we ask every guest on the Medicin is, what do you love in your life? What aspect of your life do you love so much that you wish you could gift it to every human?
My connection to the divine. That's what I basically live for, to be honest. That's the number one thing in my life, to serve that. I always kind of try to listen and be very in tune with the inner movement of divine will. And to kind of follow wherever that leads, I go. And I try to not to question it in any way or form, just to follow that, because I know that is actually bringing the highest good for myself and everyone and everything else around me.
I love that perspective. We were just talking before we hit record around just scratching the surface on water, and that the more you start to understand, the more you actually just understand that there's so much more you are yet to know and yet to understand. But finding comfort in that mystery and that deep curiosity is similar when you are connecting with the divine, and you tend to have these moments of what seem like progress, but that also that paradoxical feeling of feeling like you're just scratching the surface, and that there's so much more to be had when it comes to experiencing the divine. And so I think a perfect correlation there as we get into the world of water.
Most definitely. And water is I would just like to say this, that water is the most fundamental level of our physical existence. It is where spirit marries the body, so to speak. It is the most fundamental level of our existence. When you change that, all the biology follows. So that's why we kind of in our research kind of really zeroed in water, because we knew that that's where the true magic of life actually happens.
It's so good. And we're going to get into this all obviously and some of the stories and testimonies behind it, but we've heard from other people too. When people address their water, maybe they're in a state of dysbiosis or dis-ease, or just not feeling great, not having a ton of energy. I think sometimes we can overlook water and the water that we're drinking because we've simplified it. We've just like, oh, it's clean from the tap. It's not going to give me diarrhea. I'm good to go. But there's so much more available to us. And when we change our water, when we level up our water, because we are 98%, water molecules floating around in this meat suit, it makes sense that changing that very fundamental aspect, but it's simple, right? It's complex, but simple. I think a lot of only good can come from that when we gift our body something like coherent, structured, beautiful, intelligent water.
I would agree 100%. Like you mentioned, 99% of our molecules is water. When you look at it, we're basically very clever H2O.
Yeah.
So that off the bat tells you, okay, there is something very important here that is not really discussed anywhere. People are always going to the chemical side of things. But Nikola Tesla said this, like the famous renowned scientist. He said that if you want to know the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration.
Mm-hmm.
And all of our research proved that water is actually broadband absorber, receiver, and transmitter of energy, frequency, and vibration. That's why it's so fundamental. That's why it holds the key to basically everything. So everybody in the world, you probably most definitely heard about Dr. Masaru Emoto from Japan. Mm-hmm. And his he was one of the pioneers of the science of water. So I love, people have seen this, he usually took a Tokyo tap water and then freezed it and then photographed the crystals. And then he took it into a glass and then kind of put certain messages on it, like love, hate, appreciation. And then he refreezed the water and then took photos of those crystals again. And it truly showed how water changes dramatically given the input to it. As I mentioned, it's a broadband absorber of energy, frequency, and vibration. The one experiment that he did that I love, and thousands of people all over the planet did, and anybody can actually do, is that you take rice and you boil it, and you put it in 2 cups. What he did is he came to cup every single day, and to 1 cup he expressed love to it and positive emotion and joy and blessings, and to the other one every single day he expressed negative emotions. So after a week or 10 days, the cup of rice that love was expressed to had this beautiful fermented smell of rice, and everybody can do this experiment, and you could actually eat that rice. And the other one, it's the same rice. The other one that had negative emotions expressed to started to physically decompose, and you could see it started to rot. And you actually started to have a bad smell. So you cannot eat that. The only difference was the intention, the energy that was sent to it. And what's the carrier of that energy? Water.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I love how nature is teaching us love and kindness. Because once you really understand this, since we are 99% water, whatever I send to anybody, I'm literally changing their biology. And when you know that, then you cannot but be responsible. You have to be mindful, because what am I putting out there? It's staying there. But there is also one other element which I really, really love, is whatever I love this thing with blessings. When you send a blessing, your highest possible energy, I know every single time when it's received, because I feel it in myself.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever we send blessing, it actually has double effect. It has incredible positive effect on my biology, and it has incredibly positive effect on the biology of the person that I've sent blessing to.
Mm-hmm.
When we really realize that, we're only going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it just multiplies. You just don't want to do anything else. You just want to send love to people, to birds, to sky creatures, to land creatures, everywhere. Because we're all water. It's interesting how, we're consciousness, but as I mentioned, water is the most fundamental level of our biology.
Beautifully put.
Yeah,
And
I love that so much.
As our great friend and mentor Paul Chek says, love is a boomerang, and water is surely the architecture that allows us to communicate in relationship to life itself. And I just love where this is going already. Before we jump into the details and kind of the granularity of the science behind the work that you do and the products that you have, maybe just a quick context for everybody listening. What is Aǹalemma water? What do you do specifically? And we can then unpack it into more granularity from there.
Awesome. So first, I would like to explain to people what water is. Well, that's actually very hard to explain. But we actually gathered water samples from all over the planet. And we realized that water at this point in time, due to various environmental reasons, and maybe we don't even have to go there, but it exists in what we call a chaotic state. So H2O molecules in drinking water, they behave chaotically. They crash into each other constantly. But since all of this is happening on an atomic level, nobody really kind of understands it or even kind of realizes the implications of it. We realized it very soon in our research that water is the key element, and it plays a key role in basically any biological process. So our goal was to find a way to impact water and change it. And in our early research, which is really interesting, we had this huge greenhouse where we were testing plants. And we realized that when we changed the water, the vitality of plants changed extraordinarily. And it was our kind of quest to create the most dominant positive frequency of water that exists. And it took us 15 years. And what we created is the Aǹalemma. So what's inside this vial is what we call the mother water. It takes 1 full year for us to create the mother water. It takes 5 different stages. And when the 5th stage passes, then the water enters into this very special liquid crystalline state. And because water is always going to pick up the most dominant frequency of its environment, when you submerge the Aǹalemma in the regular water and you swirl around, any H2O molecule that comes into close proximity to the mother water starts to mimic its exact state and structure. That's why it's so elegant and simple, yet is so powerful. And then you actually have the cup of the mother water, which you drink, and then you have incredible results, which we're going to go into very detail.
For the listeners, if you're not watching on YouTube, Mario was holding up the Aǹalemma wand, which is this beautiful kind of, what is it, like 8 inches long. It looks like a wand. It looks exactly like just a quartz. It looks like glass, but it's actually quartz, which you can go into. A wand with, I believe this is it stainless steel?
Stainless steel, yes. Stainless steel holder and the crystal vial, which is filled with the mother water.
If Luke Skywalker and Harry Potter merged their wand and lightsaber, it would look like this device.
Yeah, I just wanted to give the listeners some context, because you were holding up the wand and you can see the mother water moving around inside and the little bubble moving around. So when you say water or the molecules pick up on the dominant frequency, what do you mean by dominant frequency?
This is very interesting. This is why every ancient culture of this world revered water, because they knew that when you show respect to the water, when you're treating it with respect, you are actually influencing it. Current civilization is not doing that. We are not treating water in any good way. And the toxins, everything that is inside the water. So even if you remove, this is what people don't understand. People usually go to the chemical side of things. And it's important, don't get me wrong. You need to purify your water. But even if you purify all the impurities, all the toxins in it, everything that is kind of not good for you, the information of that still exists in water. Because as I mentioned, water is always going to pick up the most dominant frequency of it. And you need to purify that information. Otherwise, you're just taking it all in. And since we're 99% water molecules, all of those water molecules are just going to, again, pick up the most dominant frequency. So now you see why is so important that we have water, which is not only pure from the chemical point of view, but also placed in this very special liquid crystalline state that turns our body in a state of coherence.
Perfect segue. I would love to kind of touch on, as I mentioned before we pushed record to you, that we're a little bit of water nerds. We have a structured system in our home. We have little hydrogen bottles that we take with us traveling. We have a vortexer that we take with us traveling. It's important to us, and we try to prioritize wherever we go. We're getting high quality water. And so our listeners, if they've been listening for a long time, are probably aware of the benefits and importance of structured water. But what was the impetus? What was the initial nudge to take it past the level of just being structured? And what are the differences between Aǹalemma, coherent water, and structured water?
So we realize, there are a couple of scientists on the planet, a couple of companies that created some form of structured water, just like you mentioned, through using vortexes. Some use magnets, some use crystals. And it does the job. It actually creates a crystalline structure or some form of structure in water. But the key element is actually stability. All of the waters that we tested, structured waters and devices that we tested, actually create water that stays in coherent state between a couple of minutes and day and a half tops. Then the water again goes back into chaos. Those bonds that were created just fall apart, and the water goes back into chaos. With Aǹalemma, it's not that way for some incredible reason. That's why we believe that Mother Earth is the hidden voice of this project. And we actually feel that we are serving this water, not the other way around. Because when you see something amazing happening, then you cannot okay, I own this. Or even kind of claim, we came up with it, or something, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So when the water passes, as I mentioned, this fifth stage, there are 5 stages, and after 1 year, water doesn't go back to chaos. And we really we tried our best to push it to chaos. We kind of radiated it, did all kinds of things to it to see whether it will go back to chaos. And it never did. And we actually now 5 consecutive years tested it after just treating it once. Never in this 5 years has it lost its state of coherence.
Wow.
So you could stir a cup of water with the Aǹalemma wand for 30 seconds or whatever, put it in a cupboard somewhere or a safe for 5 years.
This is exactly what we're doing, but not a cup, a larger quantity of water. And every single year we are testing it and retesting it to see if it lost its state of coherence. It didn't.
Wow.
And not only that, we kind of we realized in our research that EMFs are actually having really detrimental effect on the water. It pushes the water deep into chaos. And with Aǹalemma water, that doesn't happen.
Wow. You know what this is making me think of? And I am a bro who has to use analogies to understand the world. That's just the way that my brain works. But I'm thinking of like a company, right? A group of people who are working in disharmony, essentially. And you've got a troubled company where the culture and the infrastructure is lackluster. It's chaotic. And maybe you start to set up some systems and some structures that have been tried and true and proven. And there's, now at least an infrastructure that would seem more productive. But even if it has short-term results, there's oftentimes the chaos will override that structure and you still have never fixed the problem. And oftentimes what you have to do in a corporate infrastructure like this, you have to change the tone at the top. You have to change the dominant energy. And so I've seen this happen where a dynamic CEO, probably not unlike yourself, can come into one of these organizations, regardless of the structures that have been put in place, but their vitality and their vibrance can actually impact the entire organization. And all of a sudden, even though if there was structure and systems in place that would seemingly be productive and profitable, now there's vitality and there's inspiration and there's passion and these things that are a little more metaphysical, but that can't be seen through the structure of traditional business 101. And so it's almost like this is the vibrant CEO of water that you place into the organization, and it can embody some of these characteristics that have never been able to be captured before.
And adding to that, all of those individual employees stay that way. They stay affected for the rest of their life, essentially, like affected and influenced by this perfectly put tone at the top.
This is what I love, how nature is teaching us how we should behave as humans. So these H2O molecules, they are moving chaotically, just like we are on the planet. But when they join hands, when they enter into this connection, when they move in harmony, then their true power is being unleashed. And this is exactly what we need now on the planet. And I believe this water is playing a part to create this wave of coherence everywhere. Because if we start to experience each other as one, then we cannot hurt anybody or anything.
That's so true.
If we realize that we are one body, like if for instance, I'm kind of hammering a nail and I hit my hand, I'm not going to retaliate on the hand with the same hand. I'm just going to kind of hold it and kind of take care of me. The only idea is that we're kind of separate. We are not. Nothing could be further from the truth. Nature is teaching us that we are all one. We are connected in the deepest possible level. Everything else is just mind. Mind is the only thing that kind of separates us, but this is all an illusion.
Right. We couldn't agree more. You're speaking our language for sure. I want to jump into the research. Mine was blown when I heard you on a couple different podcasts and heard you talking about the research. And I really want to go through, hopefully, if it's okay with you, one by one through a few of the different studies.
Of course.
The research is staggering. And maybe you could first share how what your involvement in the human studies looks like, and then let's start with the glycan age study.
Okay. So what I loved about this study is we wanted to prove that something biologically remarkable happens when people drink this water. So I was researching what can we do? We decided to go. There are several companies that are creating this biological age tests. They're creating biological age tests, and it's awesome thing. You kind of get a sense of how old you actually are in contrast to your chronological age. But why I love glycan age? Because it's much, much, much more than just biological age test. Through it, you can very accurately see what is the state of your overall health. These guys actually are at the forefront of the glycoscience. They have over 120 published scientific work in that particular area. So there is nobody on the planet which actually knows more and which really kind of went deep enough, went all the way deep. So this is what I love. And so what is glycanage? Through the state of glycans in our body, you can very accurately predict what is going to be your health down the line. So through the state of glycans, you can very accurately determine what is the state of your immune system. And there is the other thing, there is the pro-inflammatory and anti-inflammatory glycans, through which you can see what is the level of inflammation in your body. And now everybody knows that low grade systemic inflammation is the key cause of all chronic diseases. So it's not just a kind of indicator of your age. It's the very powerful indicator of your overall health and wellness. So what we did, we took people in the study. We did the first glycanage test and determined the biological age of participants. Then people drank Aǹalemma water, 1.5 liters of Aǹalemma water a day without changing anything else in the world. We actually asked Genos people, the guys that created glycanage, what is the shortest amount of time for the glycans in our body to change? And they told us the very minimum is 3 months. And this is exactly what we did. And then we did another test to see what is the result. And the results was really remarkable. Almost every single person in the study experienced between 1 and 12 years of biological age rejuvenation. Their whole system got regenerated on a cellular level. One gentleman that was really the oldest, he was 12 years over his chronological age, and you can really kind of see it on him. He had the best results. This is what I love about this water. It actually tackles where we are the weakest and gives us the best results. So this is glycanage study, which was really, really remarkable. And this was our entrance into human studies. So maybe we can immediately jump into the second study. So the first, as I mentioned, fundamental level of our existence is water. The second level is actually our microbiome. We like to think of ourselves as single species, but nothing could be more further from the truth. We're actually in an entire ecosystem. We're living in symbiosis with trillions of microorganisms. There are more of these microorganisms than our cells.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole equilibrium is extraordinarily important. I don't know if you know, but there are over 150 times more microbial genes than human genes.
Wow.
Crazy.
And these genes are actually creating enzymes that are breaking down foods and getting nutrients for us that we wouldn't have any access to otherwise. Another very interesting thing between the connection of microbiome and immunity. Did you know that 70% of our immune cells actually exist in the gut of our in the lining of our gut?
Yeah.
And then as we develop, these bacteria are teaching our immune cells good from bad. They're helping alleviate kind of the bad guys, and they're helping with the immune responses, autoimmune responses. So this equilibrium is extraordinarily important. The state of our microbiome in the last 2 decades, science has made a connection between any area and every area of our health with the state of our microbiome. Mm-hmm. Not only digestive health, immune health, cardiovascular health, neurological health, mental health. This is also very interesting. I don't know if you knew this, but bacteria in our gut are actually creating neurotransmitters. And they're being delivered through the gut-brain axis to our brain and creating neural pathways. So they're actually affecting how we feel, how we perceive ourselves, how we think. So this is just a short introduction because we wanted to see how Aǹalemma water influences the microbiome. Because as I mentioned, water is a fundamental level. The next level is the microbiome. So we actually did a double-blind placebo-controlled study where we measured what is called dysbiosis index of the microbiome. So dysbiosis index measures the degree of deviation in the microbiome, taking into account all the bacterial phyla and species and their weighing factor. So we had people in the study. There were we did a quote-unquote snapshot of the microbiome. Then people drank Aǹalemma water for 2 months, only 2 months, 1.5 liters a day, without changing anything else in the world. And then we did another test. And we had, on average, 17% improvement on the dysbiosis index over the placebo.
Wow.
Within only 2 months.
Yeah, so people are having significant improvement on average after 2 months, and so it makes me think like, okay, well, what could that improvement look like on average after a year of drinking this water?
We are actually now doing a deep dive and doing a much larger microbiome study because we know the implications, and we're actually going one step further. We're not going to be kind of measuring between people, other people in the placebo group. And so we're actually going to have a single person, their microbiome, because microbiome is like a fingerprint.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually unique to every individual. So we are creating and designing a new study, which is really exciting, where people are going to be the control and the actual group. So for a certain period of time, they're going to be drinking placebo regular water without them knowing. And for a certain period of time, they're going to be drinking Aǹalemma water. So in a single microbiome environment, we're going to see the change. And that is very, very, very profound. So we're going to do a much deeper dive, and we're going to do so much in that particular thing. So I'm really thrilled about that study. We already have amazing results, but we know that when you go in this particular way, the findings are even more profound.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love that you guys are studying the microbiome, because the more that we've learned about holistic health and, kind of vibrant, radiant health from the inside out, you cannot overlook the gut health and the microbiome. And I feel like sometimes the term gut health or improving your gut can be sort of vague and sort of this umbrella term where there's, a million different probiotics, fermented foods or not, SIBO, this, that. It's just sometimes, at least I'll speak for myself, if you have gut dysbiosis, it can feel like, geez, where do I even start? How do I even go about assessing this? And although there are other ways that we can support our gut and the gut lining and making sure that those cells are tightly knit together and there's no gaps or anything, I think that drinking Aǹalemma water is a great place for anyone and everyone to start if you are actively trying to work on your gut health and heal your gut.
Most definitely. But as I mentioned, now the science now can even pinpoint the exact pathway by which a specific species of bacteria has an effect on any area of our health. So we're not talking about just gut. We're talking about everything, every level of our health, which is really, really, really phenomenal and exciting when you look at it. So I have to kind of mention something which is really why is actually microbiome on the planet in danger? Let's call it that way, because now various scientists in the world realize that because of the food that we eat and the glyphosate in our food, your listeners probably familiar with the whole phenomenon.
Yeah, they know the G word.
Yeah, they know the G word. Yeah. So the key thing is that this is actually an antibiotic, and it kills the microbiome. And we already now shared how incredibly important the state of microbiome is. So to restore the microbiome is, I would say, almost number one task. When you do that, like I mentioned, first is the water. When you change the water, you're changing the microbiome. And then everything else kind of follows. I have to jump back to tell really interesting study that we did 2 years ago. We actually took completely depleted, destroyed, infertile soil. So the soil that was killed by various toxins, including glyphosate. So you couldn't grow anything on it. It's just
much of the world's soil in today
is dirt. Is in peril actually. So what we did, we one part of it we watered with regular water as a control, and one part we watered with Aǹalemma water. And the part that was watered with regular water, basically nothing happened. And the part that was watered with Aǹalemma water, and we're talking about a very short period of time, there was a huge explosion of the biodiversity of the microbiome in soil, so much so that the bacteria in the soil started to suck CO2 out of the atmosphere into the soil where it belongs. And there is also one other really amazing thing. Usually when the rain falls on the soil, minerals go to deeper layers, it kind of get washed out. But with Aǹalemma water, there is a huge retainment of those minerals in the top layer where plants can actually use it. So in a very short period of time, just by watering the soil with Aǹalemma water, we made the soil fertile.
Wow. That is absolutely incredible. Just not adding any probiotics or anything like that, just the water. That's
just the water. And I have to say about the probiotics are cool, but I have to tell you one thing, we have to have thousands of different bacteria in our gut. And usually when you take probiotics, it's like, if you have like the very best one, it's like 10.
Yeah.
And it's basically, it is kind of, I'm not going to say that it's not doing anything. It is. But when you kind of see the whole scope of things, then it's kind of really not enough. That's why we need to treat everything holistically. That's why I love this water, because it actually creates a profound change. Now we can jump on our second or third study, which is really, really important. So the first level is water. The second is microbiome. The third is actually our mitochondria.
That's what I was going to ask. Cool.
Yeah. So all of the scientists now agree that a decline in our mitochondrial function is the key cause of cellular aging. So we wanted to see what's going to happen with our energy levels that our mitochondria are creating, or the ATP, adenosine triphosphate, when people drink this water. So ATP is the primary energy currency of our cells. It's directly responsible for powering the majority of cellular processes in our body, including muscle contraction, nerve impulse transmission, biochemical reactions. Every breath, every heartbeat depends on ATP. And the biggest consumer ATP, if you can imagine, is the brain. 25% of all of our energy goes for brain. For one neuron to send an impulse to a neighboring cell, it needs to hydrolyze 1 billion ATP molecules, and there are billions of neurons. So it's just something kind of interesting thought. So anyhow, what we did a double-blind placebo-controlled study where we measured ATP levels in humans. We employed luciferase, which is an enzyme that catalyzes light production in bioluminescent organisms. And due to its extraordinary sensitivity, you can actually very accurately measure ATP levels in humans. So what we did, we took, again, a snapshot of ATP levels in the people in the study. People drank Aǹalemma water, 1.5 liters of Aǹalemma water a day for 2 months without changing anything else in their world. The diet stayed the same, exercise regime stayed the same, everything else stayed the same. And then we did following test. And we had increase of 20% over the placebo. If you count in the placebo, that's 26. So entire mitochondrial energy of the body increased by 26% just by drinking the water. If you give your body a couple of percent of energy more, and we're talking about real energy, we're not talking about Red Bull.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is actual mitochondrial energy. So mitochondrial function increases. What actually increases? This is also very, very important. So people, our primary two fuels are sugar and fats. And if the mitochondria doesn't do their job properly, then you have obesity and all kinds of issues. Because if it works properly, then it turns sugars and fats into energy. And this is the key. So just by drinking Aǹalemma water for 2 months, ATP levels in our body increased by 26%, which is wow. Yeah, we were also kind of like, wow. So it was really kind of, and we are doing so many more studies because this opened huge doors. The next study that we're actually going to do, there is now this whole craze about NAD levels and, NMN and the whole thing. Since there is a great correlation between ATP and NAD, we're going to do a study to see just by drinking the water how much NAD levels will actually rise.
This is so fascinating. And, we have a health podcast, so we get feedback from listeners often as to what, and have a good pulse on what their general interests and concerns are in the realm of health. And similarly, we work in kind of the industry, the nutraceuticals industry. So you tend to hear these trending topics of interest. And especially over the last 4 or 5 years, the pandemic, the change in the world, we've got glyphosate in the environment. People are interested in searching for and looking for solutions towards immunity. Obviously with the pandemic, that was of utmost importance to folks. They're looking for, they're treating stress, anxiety, depression, stress, these thought patterns that are looping and repetitive and pessimistic. You've got digestion and you've got vitality and energy, and people without this innate drive and thirst, and they're looking for these resources to have more energy in their life. And you basically have walked us through the cascade of benefits just by improving the quality of your water that touches on each one of these lanes, between the connection to the brain and the gut, between the immune significance of having a healthy microbiome, to energy and vitality. And I'm just thinking of this image of this is such an upstream solution to these downstream problems, these downstream floods that we're dealing with. And even in the holistic health space, we've got people who are filling their cupboards with capsules. And even if they're theoretically better alternatives than mainstream medicine, it's ashwagandha, it's shilajit, and it's some of these other really powerful adaptogens and modalities, they're still dealing with a downstream flooding scenario that could potentially be solved and absolutely helped by quite literally just improving the quality of your water.
Yes, water is our actually communication system. When you upgrade, so to speak, that, then everything in the body is more connected. And whatever you're actually putting, you mentioned, I love ashwagandha. I love it. It's an incredible, and there are several other things which are truly powerful for health. But then everything works much better, because whatever information you put in, then that information has a pathway to reach wherever it needs to go. Mm-hmm. But I have to tell you one really interesting thing, why this water is so spiritual. Mm-hmm. You're going to love this. So in our early research, we actually, our founders, Dr. Eric Larker and Dolph Zantinge, they actually picked up a lab of a famous German scientist called Fritz Popp. He invented this technology where he could but capture biophotons. Every living thing exudes light. And you need very delicate and very sensitive technology that you can capture it. And he actually created technology that you can capture every single biophoton with. That's where we kind of started to see when you change the water, biological systems start to exude more light. For instance, our tomatoes grown with Aǹalemma water, they exude 60% more light when you compare it to tomatoes that were watered with regular water. They have 60% more vitality. This is an introduction to the study that I want to mention. So in the beginning, we actually took seeds and we watered them with regular water as a control and with Aǹalemma water. Those seeds that were watered with regular water, and we measured biophoton emissions. I have to explain that as well. So with regular water, nothing really exciting happened. But with seeds that were watered with Aǹalemma water, we started seeing this sinusoidal shape of peaks and valleys of biophoton emissions. We were wondering, like, what's happening there? Why is this suddenly happening? And seeds watered with regular water, basically nothing really happened. After a while, we realized that it followed the tides. It connected the seed electromagnetically to the circadian rhythm of planet Earth.
Wow.
Now that was like, that was a huge kind of moment for us, because then we realized this water, I mean, it kind of makes sense because, you know, the crystalline structure of our molecules in the body, we are water. We act like an antenna because all of the old radios, they were actually crystalline. They were based on crystals. So when your body is primed, all of your water molecules are primed in certain way, you actually connect electromagnetically to much larger environment. And then you flow with the universe. You flow with Mother Earth, with the changes, natural changes that happen. You flow with it. You're not separate from it. And this society we're separate from each other and from the planet, from our mother. Unfortunately, we are part of the earth. We are not separate from it. And this is what we loved when we saw this.
So if it's happening with, if tomatoes and the tomato seeds that you guys treated with Aǹalemma water are the fruit of those seeds are emitting light, 60% more light, and in a frequency that it is mimicking the waves or the frequency of Mother Earth, how do you are you able to measure that also in humans, or are we just applying this to, if it happens with tomatoes, then it must happen with all life? How does that work?
Technology still didn't reach that spot.
Okay.
From there is kind of now, just so you know, so it is an exciting kind of development. We are kind of looking into that now, because it's a very delicate and sensitive technology, and to measure a human, it needs to be very large.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So that's where kind of it gets tricky, because, you know, you have this kind of aura machines, but this is not it. This is something much more sophisticated, let's call it that way. But there is kind of now development. So it's interesting that you mentioned this, and we definitely want to go there. But I have to tell you one thing. We realized in all of our research that everything is interconnected. Just like we saw with the soil, our microbiome is our soil. And whatever we saw in the soil outside, the same effect had on our microbiome. Whenever we saw the increase of vitality in plants, we saw the increase of vitality in humans and ATP levels. So we know that it is that way. Everything is correlated. There is nothing separate in nature.
Yeah, that makes sense.
As human beings, when we pick up, you know, if you spend time in nature, especially after having not done so for some time, there's generally a sense of ease, peace. This is okay. But you're also picking up on the seasonality and the cycles and the patterns of nature. And I know for me, and I'm sure for many, there's a reflective moment of, wow, in my day-to-day, I'm so disconnected from this cyclical nature. I don't feel the ebbs and flows of life. And it can often feel like you just happenstance will find a groove and things are working well in your life, and then you seemingly run into a wall of resistance and charge and challenge. And it almost makes me wonder that level of disconnection with the cycles of life itself may be putting you at this disadvantage in this disconnected world, because you are unaware of the tides of life. And when those change, you're not able to pick up and continue to ride the current, against the current, if you will. And so this connection, or these modalities to the cyclical nature and the seasonality of life itself, can be so productive for a life of working with its changes instead of against them.
To be honest, I believe that when we are in tune, I believe that everything happens always the way it should, so to speak. Now, if I'm not in the state of resistance, I'm flowing with life. But if I'm constantly resisting what's happening, then I'm actually creating problems. This is what nature is teaching us. Nature is teaching us presence. When we flow with everything that's happening, then, there aren't no problems, so to speak. Problem is actually an idea.
Yeah.
In mind, and then we kind of create all stories around it.
Yeah.
So this is the way. That's why I see a great connection between. That's why I love meditation. Meditation takes you into place where you are in harmony with life. You are putting yourself in a perspective where nothing is a problem. Where, in the deepest sense, I am the center of my universe. And then I'm actually thinking, what can I bring to the world? Not what can I take from it? Because we all came to actually give something. Every single one of us has a song to sing, and nobody else on the planet has that particular tone.
Yep.
And if we don't sing it, the world is not going to be as magnificent.
Yeah, we are all a different tune in the symphony, the orchestra of the cosmos. Yeah,
yes,
totally. I would love to talk about some logistics, maybe some do's and don'ts with the Aǹalemma wand. First, let's just start with basic use. How does one use an Aǹalemma wand?
Awesome question. So it's actually very simple. So you just take the Aǹalemma wand and you can use it on any liquid that you're drinking. So if it has H2O molecules in it, they will form this very special liquid crystalline structure. So it's not just for water, but whatever people use, you can use it. But always be sure that for 3 deciliters of liquid, you need 20 to 30 seconds. You can actually extrapolate from there. The more liquid use, if you're a liter or 2 liters, you have to actually swirl for a minute and a half, so that you have the same effect. But always after swirling, just use a cloth to wipe the excess liquid, and you just put it back into the holder. And be very mindful and careful with it. If it falls, it will break.
Yeah.
So just so you know, this crystal that actually quartz crystal, that vial that Aǹalemma, that mother water is in. So why we use the crystal? Because crystal serves as a superconductor. It creates a barrier between the rest of the water and the mother water, but it actually transmits or lets the frequency of mother water with no loss. So that's why it's simple, and you can use it every single time because of this very special property of water. Water is always going to pick up the most dominant frequency of its environment. So you just swirl through the water, and all of the water in very short period of time becomes just like the mother water.
So cool.
I have to mention one other thing. We recently launched a whole house system. So you can actually install it in the piping system of your house, and you don't have to swirl anymore. Any faucet you open, it's going to be coherent water. And this is really exciting. So we kind of hypothesize, since skin is our largest organ in the body, that something profound would happen if people would be submerged in Aǹalemma water for kind of 20 minutes or 30 minutes. Just you take a bath in it. And we connected to Hydrate Spa, to Dr. Greg Lane, my good friend David Perez, and they have various methods and equipment measuring before and after. And we really had amazing results with it. So every single person experienced increase in cardiac output, in stroke volume, and in blood viscosity.
Wow. And just for context, you mentioned the Hydrate Spa. We recently had Tracy Dews on the show, and she owns that spa.
Yes.
So just giving a little context to the listeners. So they have actually a bath. I've seen it on her stories, a bath of Aǹalemma water.
We are so happy to be collaborating, because it really gave us avenue to test before and after to actually see the results. And now this opened huge doors. We really want to make a dive into not only experimenting and doing tests and studies with it, because there is something there that is really, it's not just when you lay in water for 1 hour, your body is going to absorb up to a liter of water, but there is something else there. Some pathways are being open, which actually kind of reminds me now to tell you where this water works the fastest.
I can't wait.
So we actually, since we kind of went to see this water is an electromagnetic phenomenon, let's call it that way. So we want to see what is the most electromagnetic part of human being. Brainwaves. So what we did a double-blind study with identical twins. So identical twins, these individuals are genetically identical. So we put QEEG equipment on them, and we gave regular water to one twin and Aǹalemma water to the other one. Twins didn't know which one was which, and the doctor administering the test didn't know which one was which. We just monitored the results. So almost instantly, as soon as the twin took a sip of Aǹalemma water, there was an almost instant better connection between the left and the right hemisphere of the brain, an instant cooling effect on the brain waves, while the other twin didn't experience anything.
Wow.
That was like, whoa. And then a couple of weeks later, we repeated the experiment, but gave Aǹalemma water to the other twin. And since these two individuals are genetically identical, we saw exactly the same happening on the other twin, while the first twin, again, didn't experience anything. So this is something which is kind of irrefutable. You see something happening there, and it's very measurable, and it's the same. So this was really kind of a powerful showing of what happens almost immediately. Everything else happens in time, but this is like the most electromagnetic part in us, and it works almost instantly.
Wow.
Which I have to kind of continue on with, since just to tell you the story where we saw that cell phone radiation, EMFs, we kind of touched upon that actually we're, I believe, with the first that proved, because usually telco world kind of always talk about increases of kind of thermal energy, but this is not where the actual issue is. We proved and we saw that when people use cell phones, your brain waves go into chaotic patterns.
Wow. Yeah.
So, and you can see it in every single person. So we actually had several people in the study, and they used cell phones for 3 minutes, and we observed their brain waves. And then we gave regular water to some and Aǹalemma water to some. Those who had regular water, basically nothing happened. But those who had Aǹalemma water, again, almost instant cooling effect on the brainwaves, and brainwaves went from chaotic to green.
Wow, harmonized, coherent.
Harmonized, coherent. So, and this is, again, you see it happening.
Wow.
So it was really, really kind of remarkable. Another thing I'm just going to mention with the brainwaves is we kind of really went there and wanted to see a bit kind of longer exposure. There was one lady who had a pretty severe neurological disorder, where in people, when people sleep, our delta waves are high. But in this particular neurological disorder, delta waves get high even during the daytime. So they actually have kind of, they get dizzy. They're not kind of, it's a pretty big issue, and it's progressive. So there is no quote unquote cure for it. And we put this person on Aǹalemma water, and lo and behold, after a couple of weeks, delta waves started coming down, and they actually went into green.
Wow. What is green?
Green is harmonic. So you have usually in this, why am I saying this? Because in QEEG, when you watch QEEG tests, you always have, whenever something goes out of whack or out of balance, it goes to orange and then red.
Okay.
And green is when it comes down to normal.
Gotcha. Wow, that is so incredible. Thank you for sharing all of that research with us. It's just truly mind-blowing. I want to jump back just a bit to using the Aǹalemma wand. I want to share a hack with you that I came up with, and I want to see if it gets your approval.
Of course.
So, I have my big mason jar that I drink Aǹalemma water out of every day. And I was kind of, at first, when we first got the wand, I was kind of like paranoid about clinking the wand against the glass, just like, I don't want this to break. And so I got the idea to, those handheld spinners that kind of blend liquid. They've got like a little whisk on the end, and you push a button and it spins. Have you seen those?
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Okay, so it's just a little like immersion blender, basically. We have one. And so what I've been doing is I put the Aǹalemma wand in the water, but I don't move it. And then I take the spinner and I put that in the water too, and I spin the water really fast.
That will do the trick, because it will expose all of the water inside to the mother water. The only thing that is necessary is that the water passes near the mother water. And since water is a broadband absorber, receiver, and transmitter of energy, frequency, and vibration, it will pick up the most dominant frequency of its environment, which is Aǹalemma. So it's actually a brilliant way. I can give you one other hack, which is also kind of cool for people. If you want to kind of use a bigger pitcher, what I kind of usually do, you just, whatever you're pouring water from, you just, if it's a tap, I don't know, people usually kind of have purifying systems, you just put Aǹalemma underneath the flow water.
Yeah. That's
And you just hold it, and until it reaches whatever you have, a pitcher of 1 liter, liter and a half, 2 liters, you don't have to swirl. All of the water in the pitcher will actually become coherent. So this is also, but I love your approach. It's actually awesome. It speeds the process up.
Yeah, it cuts down the time a little bit. Not that I don't have 30 seconds to stir my water, but I was more worried about clinking it on the side.
I know what you mean.
But then I realized that it did speed up the process, where I
definitely.
I did it for about 10 seconds.
But you know what I love? It's a kind of a meditation process, or a ritual.
Yeah.
When you kind of stay with water for 1 minute, you kind of stop the world and pay attention to yourself, to the water, and you bless it in the process.
Yeah.
That actually changes everything. That small ritual can not only change your day, if you're doing it every day, it can change your life, because it makes you present. You stop. The mind stops. Everything else stops. You're just with yourself, with the water, and in a prayer.
Yeah.
That's why I believe that all the ancient traditions, they have blessings before you start eating. You bless your food. You are literally changing the energy of what you're about to eat. You infuse it with that particular frequency. And when you eat it, you become that.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's so important.
Yeah, you're re-inspiring me to at least a few times a day sit and do the ritual of actually stirring my water and taking a second to express gratitude in my heart and kind of imbibe the water with some extra gratitude.
I mean, you can do it with the same thing. You just kind of, swirl it around with thing, but you're just kind of being with it. That kind of, whatever we do with that kind of presence and with that kind of awareness, we are sanctifying it, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So every single action, whatever we're doing in the moment, becomes different and becomes special because we are being with it in a profound way.
Yeah. Is there any benefit to, our bodies are water, putting it in our mouth or like under our tongue in any way? Or are people
or against our body
or against our skin?
This is so interesting. I have to kind of direct you, if you haven't already been introduced to Veda Austin's work.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. I've heard the name.
She is amazing. What she's doing with water is crazy. So kind of check out her work. She actually did, she has some form of also doing what Dr. Masaru Emoto did. She actually created a crystal and photographed a crystal with Aǹalemma water. And it's a huge, beautiful crystal. You have to see it. Check it out on her Instagram. But I love what she's doing with. There is she's actually calling it hydroglyphs. The way water speaks with us.
Cool.
So it's really amazing. I think that she placed Aǹalemma under her tongue or something. I can't remember really, but her work is really, really, really amazing. So check her out.
Yeah.
She's a beautiful person.
What about hot water? What's the maximum temperature? Because as I'm drinking my coffee here, of course it's hot. I want to use Aǹalemma, but I've been sort of scared to use it in hot water. We have like an instant hot that gets pretty hot. It's like 200 degrees. And then I'm pouring like milk in. So it's not boiling or anything, but what's the...
Well, we here in Europe have Celsius, so I don't know how much is that in Fahrenheit, but I would say 60 degrees Celsius. So I don't know what's that in Fahrenheit. I have to see.
I would need to Google that.
Yeah. So it's not, 100 degrees is boiling.
Okay. Yeah, so
100 degrees Celsius. Okay. So 60 to 70, then you're 100% sure that nothing is going to happen. Well, to be honest, I don't even think that something would happen if you would submerge it to a boiling. But, it's a crystal and it's thin. Yep. So better not to kind of play with it.
Yeah. So what if I have more logistical questions here that the listeners
awesome.
might be wondering as well. So what I've done in the past, like making my coffee, since I didn't want to use it with boiling water, I just, put the Aǹalemma wand in my milk as it was kind of frothing up. Am I getting any benefit if I, use Aǹalemma milk in my coffee, but it's not that the whole cup is Aǹalemma. So is there any benefit to like doing half of a drink? If that makes sense?
Most definitely. But what I would do is actually when you start boiling water for coffee, before you boil it, you can put it in a coherent state. Whenever people are kind of making tea for themselves, I always say kind of use it when the water is not hot. Mm-hmm. And then you can heat it, and because heating it won't in any way disturb the coherence. Once it enters into this very special state, it will stay in it. So then you can heat it, reheat it, boil it. You can do anything you want with it, and it will stay in this very special coherent state. But like you mentioned, you can. This is the thing. As I mentioned, when you turn, let's say your milk, you mentioned, in coherent state, that milk or H2O molecule is there. are in this very special coherent state. And since water is always going to pick up the most dominant frequency of its environment, the rest of the water will pick up the vibe, and they were just going to pick up what's the dominant frequency of its environment. That's what our whole quest was, to create the most dominant positive frequency of water. And then any H2 molecule anywhere that comes into close proximity to it will mimic that particular structure and that particular state. Then we know, okay, we did our job. Then we don't have to do a lot. And I always remind people, that's why it's so important how you treat water. If you don't put it in a coherent state, wherever that water was, all of the frequency of its environment is in that water, even though you're not aware. And when you drink it, you are influencing your energy field.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, even if you cannot in any moment, for any reason, if you didn't take your Aǹalemma with you or whatever, bless it. Stay with it, because we are the most advanced technology of God on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
And when we send out an intention, we are powerhouses of beauty. And when you focus that beauty on the water, it will change.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah. So good. So you mentioned, obviously, we have the Aǹalemma wand. There's the whole house system that's available on your website, which I've seen. We live in a condo, so I don't know how that would work. I don't know if it would work, but it's definitely on our list of, our dream home that we're building in our minds in the future that's already happened. Definitely Aǹalemma, a whole house system is on there. It's like, why wouldn't we at this point? Like, it's a no-brainer. Are there any other products that you guys are working on, or what are you really excited about right now?
So we are actually going to be launching very soon what we call garden Aǹalemma. So anybody that has a garden, people are going to truly, truly appreciate it, because all of our early research was with plants, and plants thrive on Aǹalemma. I have to mention this. This is really remarkable. In the glycan age study, we mentioned to people that every single day they expose their Aǹalemma to the sun. And one lady actually she has this small garden of very short plants, and she actually placed her Aǹalemma on the same spot every single day. And after a month and a half, she actually sent me a photo of her garden. It's like you drew a circle around the Aǹalemma, and all the plants grew in that circle for 1.5 inches taller than anywhere else.
Wow. That's amazing.
Now that's visual.
Yeah.
You cannot ignore it. I mean, we did the tests, and we did, the vitality, the shelf life, the whole thing. And we are now in the middle of very, very kind of vast and deep agriculture study, because we want to change the agriculture industry on this planet, because then everybody would get the benefit. Because most people are unaware, but spinach 15 years ago had 80% nutrients that spinach today. We're not talking about glyphosates, the toxins, the everything. So we need to change the whole agriculture and the whole agriculture world. That's why we're investing so much. And we already created large applications that could be employed, so that this is our dream, that all the food on the planet would be created and grown with Aǹalemma water. But not only that, our mission statement of our company is to bring all the bodies of water on the planet in coherent state. We already developed this eco-friendly technology that we intend to put in the wells of the biggest rivers, because all the life down the stream would thrive. We already know that the microbiome changes. This equilibrium of life happens within the water. And then this water will enter into the ocean.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then the oceans will become coherent. Then we would have a coherent planet. We want to bring it to the governmental level, where we can actually come to the mayor of New York and tell him, this is the science. Let's bring it to the municipal water, and that all of New Yorkers are everywhere. We're talking about it because it needs to be done city by city. Then every New Yorker opens the tap. And because this water is so resilient and so stable, wherever it goes, when it reaches your tap, it will still be in this very special coherent state. And that's our dream. Then everywhere we're having people drinking coherent water. Can you imagine what a beautiful world that would be?
Yeah.
Oh,
thank you.
yes.
Thank you for your vision.
Yeah.
And,
that's a big vision,
gift.
but we and generations behind us need it. You might want to look into, speaking with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He has been an ecology activist, environmental activist. He was on the team that basically litigated against Monsanto, I'm sure you know, and is now running for president. And if anyone would be interested in getting Aǹalemma in the oceans and in rivers and streams and all of that, like it would be RFK Jr. in my opinion.
There is already that connection.
Oh, good.
So
yes.
I love it. This is this is what we want to do. Because we already know the huge issue with agriculture and the glyphosate and on the planet. We now have, they already calculated 60 harvests before we kill the microbiome of the soil. And this is a simple way to rectify that issue. You just water everywhere with this water, and then everything changes and comes back to its natural state. You know what I love? How incredible and resilient and resourceful our planet is. You don't have to give it a lot. You just give it a little and it will just thrive. We're always thinking, oh, we really polluted our planet. Can you imagine if we kind of I believed in one generation, not more, even less than one generation. I believe that we could restore our entire planet.
Amen.
So, and I can tell you one thing, I truly believe that this is our destiny. I always say this in podcasts. I love this quote from Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh. Like, from the nightmare of our own creation into the wondrous dream of what a life was intended to be. The beauty and the fragrance of our flowering shall fill the land, and we shall yet take our place in the garden of God.
So good.
That's beautiful.
This is our destiny. This is our destiny.
Yeah.
So I don't believe, of course, we are passing through this transitional period, and it is going to be we're going to see a lot of it. But this is the way I see it. We just need to keep our eye on the ball. Just know this is the part of the process. All civilization is dying. The new civilization is being born.
Yeah.
That's why we all need to kind of join hands together and just know where we're going. And then I believe we're going to get there much, much faster and with much more ease.
Yeah. And that's what we're doing right now. Everyone who is listening, we are joining proverbial hands through the audio waves. And the more people who are just aware that, this exists for our individual use and then also in the world, like it's going to do nothing but good things. And I'm so happy to be able to talk to you and receive your wisdom and share that with our listeners. And, one thing I haven't said yet is we've talked a lot about structured water systems and getting them in your home and everything. And although I think that has immense value, sometimes it can be really expensive, like in the thousands of dollars. And we've had people come to us and say, I really want to upgrade my water. I just can't afford it right now. Or is there a more affordable option as I'm saving up for a whole system? And this is really great that the Aǹalemma wand is I was actually shocked when I went on your website and saw how much it actually was. I was expecting that it would be $300, $400, $500.
And just so you know, this is intentional.
I
We
love that.
knew that we could put like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times the price and people would buy. But in this way, we wanted to make it affordable for every single individual on the planet, that anyone can get the benefit.
Yeah.
If you buy the wand, it will create coherent water for you for life. So it really is, we wanted to make it very affordable because, we're not talking about just America.
Yeah.
We're talking about the world. So we wanted to create something that would be reachable for basically anyone. Of course, whole house system is more expensive, but still when you compare it to all of these others is just much, much, much cheaper. This is our whole thing. We want to change the world. We want to make this technology affordable so that anybody can use it.
Yeah, I love that. And we actually have a discount code for you guys if you are interested in grabbing an Aǹalemma wand or one of the whole house systems for yourself. You can use the code Medicin, MEDICIN, for 10% off your Aǹalemma wand.
I was just going to say, this has been just an absolute blessing. I'm so grateful to be connected to you and just am inspired by the passion and the vision that you have for people individually, but our collective connectedness as well. And I'm definitely inspired and going to be more intentional in the way that I consume my Aǹalemma water even.
Thank you so much for having me and for giving me the opportunity to share the information, because this is what is crucial. And that's why I love what you're doing. You are a lighthouse where you are of love and of everything that is important for the world now. This is what we need. When we create this network, then we are creating coherence all over the planet. So water is one thing, but I believe, as I mentioned already, we are the highest intelligence of nature. Highest. People are talking about AI. AI's got nothing on us.
Right. Yeah.
So because there are so many layers of us, we're not talking about the intellect here. We're talking about the soul, the very source of existence. That's where true benediction comes from. True life comes from. And we are embodiments of that. How incredible is that?
Yeah, it's such a gift, really. I mean, life is hard. Earth school is hard, but oh man, it's beautiful. And it's an honor. It's a gift. And I'm thankful for people like you who truly embody that. Like, if you're watching on YouTube, you saw his face, his joy just lighting up, talking about his passions. And this is what the world needs more of. Yes, we all need Aǹalemma water, but we also need more people like you who are sharing passionately with everyone they can and really doing work that is lighting them up from the inside out and doing work that can really benefit generations to come. Like, that is just truly incredible. And I just want to say that I see you and I'm so grateful for you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I see you. You are doing an amazing work, and I'm so grateful to be here. And I'm so grateful to be a part of this project.
Yeah.
So that I can kind of tell the story. And I always say this, when this water is a miracle, and when you come in touch with it, you just want to serve it to whatever way. And I'm just doing my thing.
Yeah.
And if everybody would do their own, we're just like we mentioned, this whole symphony happens by itself. Everybody should sing their song.
Yeah. Mic drop.
Without it, yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so people, listening, if you want to grab an Aǹalemma wand, you can go to Aǹalemma-water. That's Aǹalemma-water.com. Of course, we will have all the links in the show notes for you guys, discount code, everything like that. Last question from us, Mario. We've enjoyed our time so much with you. The Medicin podcast is all about engaging in medicines that help us to create conscious relationships with our partner, with ourself, with the divine, with the earth, with movement, with water, with food, conscious relationships all around. What for you currently feels like medicine right now?
It always comes down to, again, that connection to the divine. When we are connected to that place inside of us, and it actually exists in every single person, when you come in tune with that, you become a blessing not only to yourself, but to anybody. And then you don't need anything, and then you don't want anything. You're just there for everyone and everything. And this is where our true power actually exists, because we came here to give something. We didn't come to take. We're taking just because we think that we don't have it. But when we realize that what we were looking for all the time has always been within us, then we don't look further. We just dive in. Amen. And then we experience ourselves. Yeah.
Love that. Snaps for Mario.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I know our listeners really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for listening, you guys. Check the show notes in the description box for all the links and the discounts. We'll talk to you next time. Go spread some light. Okay, bye.
Thank you so much for listening.
If you enjoyed that, check out right over here for some more fun clips.
Oh, and you're going to want to subscribe.
Bye.